we're going to talk about today is the basic concept on how to put both products together. We've got the SIGNgineer Junior here today that we're going to cover. The SIGNgineer Senior and the Junior work basically the same way. They fit, the metal fits in a groove here. You can expand a custom sign cabinet to any width you want. And what we're going to do is go over some of the basic concept on how this goes together so that it can be efficient for your fabrication of custom sign cabinets. Alright, first thing we're going to do when you build a cabinet out of SIGNgineer is determine the size of the cabinet. And one of the things to take into consideration is the lamping. It's a standard 1-inch oversize for the lamps. And what we have here is a pre-cut 4x6 that we're going to put together quickly. And the first thing you want to do is, after you determine the size of the sign box and you know which direction the lamps are going to be, you're going to obviously cut the sign cabinet 1-inch oversize for your lamping. In this case, we're going 4 foot 1 inch by 6 foot. And one of the first things to do when you go to determine the size is you take the SIGNgineer without the retainer and you take the 2-inch retainer and tape it to the edge. Okay? And we tape that to the edge so that when we're cutting this on the saw, you're going to put it up like this and take it up against your rip fence on your chop saw or whichever type of saw you have. Clamp it in place here and cut them. You cut it with the retainer on, so then when it fits later on, you have a nice tight fit and you're not going back and guessing at it. Okay, now that we have these two pieces cut with the retainers on it, and we have the bottoms cut here the 6 foot way, one of the first things we're going to do is to cut the perimeter of the sign cabinet on the chop saw and clamp it into place to the fence. Then we're going to line the frame together and mark for ballast. So now what we're going to do, now that we have these pre-cut, we're going to take these two pieces of metal and we're going to put them together like so, and we're going to line up the corners so that we know where the corners are, and we're going to mark it at the 30 inches on center is the maximum distance you can go between, or in this case we're marking for the ballast. And we've got pre-marked here for the ballast, and with the ballast we're going to have these 1-inch tubes that the ballast is going to mount to. Then what we're going to do, we're going to take these two pieces apart like this and determine the width of the cabinet. And once you determine the width of the cabinet, you're going to cut the sheet metal. In this case, the Junior takes 050. The top and bottoms, you cut this sheet metal 4 9/16 inch less the width of the cabinet. So in this case, I believe we have a 16-inch cabinet here. So when you put this sheet metal in here, like so, and you line it up like that, and then you put the other side in and you line it up, this measurement here to here is 4 9/16 of an inch less than the width. This is what we're talking about. Alright, we have this pre-cut, and the distance, the length on this, it's 6 foot. So what we're doing on this piece here is we're then the overall size of the SIGNgineer. So when the corners come together out here, once you're assembling it, the metal, this edge here, will meet up properly. On the okay, set this aside for temporary. On the side pieces, here's the side pieces. The side pieces, once again, it's 4 9/16 of an inch less on the width. You line this metal up, and in this case, instead of it being 1/8 of an inch less, for on the sides you make it 1/4 of an inch less, the height of it right here. And that way, when these metals come together, you have a nice butt seam like this. So when you tack weld it, you put like 2 or 3 tacks along here to hold it nice and straight. That we're going to go into here in a few minutes. The 1-inch tubes that are acting as the support frame to go across, these have a few different purposes. One, when you put them in here, they act as a ballast mount that we're going to do on the other side, on the top or bottom. And number 2 is they act as a lamp support, so when the lamps are in it, it doesn't belly. And number 3, it ties the frame together to make it all strong. As we noted here in some of these small pieces, when you put this tube in here and it's welded in place, we're taking all these 1-inch tubes and we're rounding off these corners so that when wires are pulled through this built-in raceway cavity right here, they won't be chafed and short out for UL purposes. Alright, now that we got these pieces, and these are all cut, and once again they're 30 inches on center max. You could put more in or less, it all depends on how you want to do it. Okay. Now that we got these 3 1/16 less than the overall width of the cabinet, and they'll be sitting in there similar to this, we're going to cut the white raceway metal. And this is going to be cut approximately 1 1/8 inches less than the overall width, and that'll slip into this groove like so and come down, and then you can attach your screws along here as needed. Alright, these are the basics of putting this all together and how it works. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring a welder in here and we're going to tack it up and do a quick rundown on how this whole thing goes together, quick and efficient.